You voted and the results are in. The top 10 must-add players for this week in fantasy baseball is coming up next on Beat the Odds. Don't go anywhere. Hello, sports fans, and welcome back to another episode of Beat the Odds. I've got your top 10 hottest players to pick up for Week 12 in fantasy baseball. Now, I want to thank all of you for casting 686 total votes, which was the driving force behind this week's list. Now, before I reveal the list, if you're a fan of this content, please smash that like button. And if you're new here and appreciate quality fantasy baseball insight, don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so that way you don't miss an episode. Also, keep an eye out for the polls on who you should be picking up ahead of Week 13. Do you have a burning fantasy baseball question? Ask me on Q. Go to askmeonq.com/beattheodds, submit your question, and for a small fee, I will personalize a response and send it to your email. It's super easy to do, and it's a great way to get fantasy baseball advice while also supporting this channel. Now let's kick off this list at number 10. We've got Tyler Stevenson, 33% owned, 86% of the catcher's votes this week, 7 runs scored, a homer, 4 runs batted in, and a .263 average over the last 2 weeks. Now we've covered Stevenson in last week's episode, but let's recap. He is a 27-year-old catcher with strong batting levers whose overall production is starting to reflect his skills at the plate. He calls one of the best hitting parks home, and the balls will certainly be flying this summer. I would certainly feel comfortable having Stevenson as my first catcher in most leagues. Let's go to number 9. We have David Hamilton, 55% owned, 49% of the shortstop's votes this week, 7 runs scored, 2 homers, 5 runs batted in, 5 stolen bases, and a .310 average over the last 2 weeks. With the slew of injuries affecting the Red Sox infield, Hamilton has stepped up in a big way. He is currently locked in at the plate, and he has been a terror on the base pass. Carrying both middle infield positions will certainly help him find a spot on many rosters. I do expect some batting average regression from Hamilton, but if he can continue to hit in the top third of the order, he's certainly going to be worth rostering. Let's go to number 8. We have Andy Paez, 28% owned, 25% of the outfielders' votes this week, 8 runs scored, 2 homers, 3 runs batted in, and a .325 average over the last 2 weeks. Paez has earned the right to be a regular in this Dodger lineup. Like most young hitters, he struggles with the strikeout rate and he doesn't walk a whole lot, but he has been slotted in the 5th spot of the order lately, which is a very productive position to be in on this team. Paez is fast, however, we haven't seen him steal many bases so far. If he is let loose on the bases, he could collect double-digit steals by the end of the year. Let's go to number 7. We have Joey Ortiz, 46% owned, 49% of the third baseman votes this week. 3 runs scored, a homer, 6 runs batted in, 2 stolen bags, and a .265 average over the last 2 weeks. Now, who is Joey Ortiz? He has found himself some quality playing time in Milwaukee after being cast away to make room for all the emerging talent in Baltimore. After logging an .806 OPS in the minors, he hasn't missed a beat in the majors, posting an .860 OPS so far this year. Any league that counts walks or on-base percentage should really give Ortiz a look, as he has a 13.3 walk rate and an elite 1.11 strikeout to walk ratio. Let's move on to number 6. We have Jeimer Candelario, 60% owned, 50% of the third baseman's votes this week, 8 runs scored, 6 homers, 13 runs batted in, 2 stolen bags, and a .353 average over the last 2 weeks. So Candelario is currently on a heater. He's been the 3rd best player in the league over the last 2 weeks, only behind Heliot Ramos and, of course, Aaron Judge. I've got to tip my hat to him because he has been locked in at the plate and he's been finding the seats in recent games. He's got 4 homers over his last 6 games while driving in 9 of the team's 20 runs during that span. Let's go to number 5. We have Brandon Lowe, 23% owned, 57% of the second baseman's votes this week, 6 runs scored, 2 homers, 10 runs batted in, a stolen bag, and a .243 average over the last 2 weeks. Lowe has only logged 400 at-bats in a season just once in his 7-year career. Once. He hit 39 home runs that year, and we've been waiting to see if he can replicate that success. He's playing in just his 30th game so far this season. He's going to be sitting against all your lefties, but I do believe that he still possesses game-changing power and is a great pickup to have if you can squeeze him onto your bench. Moving on to number 4, we have Ryan O'Hearn, 48% owned, 76% of the first baseman's votes this week, 5 runs scored, 2 homers, 6 runs batted in, 2 stolen bases, and a .368 average over the last 2 weeks. Like Brandon Lowe, You're only going to see O'Hearn in the lineups against righties. Savvy managers who are changing their lineups every day will appreciate plugging O'Hearn into their lineups whenever he plays. A close look at his StatCast reveals why. There aren't many hitters in the league that carry a 95% expected slugging rate that strike out less often than 98% of his peers. Let's go to number 3. We have Jimmy Garcia, 54% owned, 79% of the relievers votes this week. 2 wins, 3 saves, 11 strikeouts, a 5.06 ERA, and a .56 WHIP over the last 2 weeks. So my question for Coach Schneider is, what are you going to do once Jordan Romano is healthy? Garcia has been fantastic as his replacement, and Romano, despite being hurt on 2 separate occasions, hasn't been effective all season long. Romano looks like he's going to be coming off the IL soon, but you should have another week of Garcia closing games. But as an update, Garcia just left today's game with an undisclosed injury. Let's go to number 2. We have Hunter Brown, 60% owned, 54% of the starters' votes this week. 2 wins, 23 strikeouts, a 1.42 ERA, and a .89 WHIP over the last 2 weeks. Now let's forget for a moment that Hunter Brown was the league's worst pitcher over the first 6 weeks of the season. If you include his start against Detroit on May 11th, he has posted a WHIP of 1 or less in 6 of his last 7 starts. He absolutely oozes talent, as the former Astros top prospect is using his 6-pitch repertoire to good use. He's got the White Sox lined up next week, which makes him even more of a must-add pitcher. And finally, at number 1, we have Jason Dominguez, 36% owned. He had 60% of the outfielders' votes this week. 23 runs, 6 homers, 13 runs batted in, 3 stolen bases, and a .356 average so far in the minors this year. Now, Dominguez was just placed on the 7-day IL with an undisclosed injury, so we're going to have to wait to see what the reports will say in the upcoming days. The way that he's been playing, though, it seemed like he wasn't long for his return back to the big club. Dominguez has been dominant in the minors, putting up an OPS north of 1,000 in 87 at-bats. He is worth the stash unless his injury keeps him out long-term. And that's going to do it here for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video and, of course, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'm going to sign off for now, but I will catch you guys on the next episode.